One thing all managers remember when they started out is, how do I get people to do what needs to be done? How does that actually work? Because you've had a manager yourself, but you haven't been the one responsible for the outcomes of the group. One of the common reactions from a new manager is to try to control as many things as possible, or the opposite, which is to underlead or undermanage the team and just hope everything works out. So, how do you balance your need for control with the team's need for independence and freedom of movement? That's what I'll talk about in this video. So, we're going to learn how much control is necessary, why it's important not to have total control of what people are doing, why your title as a manager doesn't automatically create cooperation, and some principles and actions that'll help you strike the balance of all those. You're put in charge of something, and the immediate thought that comes to mind is, okay, I'm responsible. And if you're like a lot of people, your first instinct is, how do I make this work? And then the tendency is to become more involved in things than probably are efficient or suitable for the group to do good work. Could be the opposite, could be totally hands off, and you're just kind of hoping that things work out. But what you're going to realize over time is that the more you involve yourself, the more details you get involved with, the more resistance you get. Now, why is that? It's not that people don't want to do a good job, get the work done in an efficient way. It's that you're limiting their options. You're limiting the choices that they can make. And how that looks is people work slower. They either bring you way too much information or not enough information at all. And then you have an overall lack of initiative in the team because they realize you're just going to get involved and may do something, unravel everything they've done in the first place. So what do we do here? You got to realize that your need for control has to be balanced with the team's need for context or the big picture on what needs to be done. One of the forces working against you as well as your team is uncertainty. So we're always trying to seek certainty. Our minds are always looking for predictability. And when we don't have predictability, we do things to try to restore that. We tell ourselves a story about what we're seeing. This is where bias comes in, and we kind of start to convince ourselves of what we want to see. We look for patterns, things that we've seen in the past that are recognizable, and we associate what we're seeing right now with what we've already seen. And it's important to realize that even though we're relieving ourselves of this tension, this anxiety that we have, it may not be the right assessment of the situation. It might not be the right decision that we're making. And while we're formulating this decision for the reasons that I just mentioned, you have the people that are going to execute the decision. So you're responsible for the outcome, but they're responsible for the work to get it done. So it can't be just one-sided. It can't be just the leader reacting to their anxiety. One of the tendencies that you'll have is you'll feel the need to, just do something. One of the things that you can be drawn to do is be involved in probably more things than you need to be. And while it's good, and you have to learn how to supervise as a new manager, you have to know the right level of things that you need to see personally, but you have to develop a sense for when are the right times. And the way you do that is, am I providing value here? What does providing value mean? It means, one of the things it means is, am I helping people work through obstacles or problems, the things that maybe only I as the manager can resolve? If you're just adding another set of eyes to the routine tasks that people need to get done, that may not be providing a lot of value. But if you are resolving discrepancies or helping bust through problems, then that's probably a good level of control. But often we get involved, we participate because we feel like we need to be doing something. So if you have an uncertain situation, maybe the team is struggling a little bit to keep on schedule, you feel like if you're part of that physically, then you feel better. But it's really not improving the performance of the team at all. Or at least you need to watch and determine if it is. So anytime you schedule a recurring check-in or something like that, you want to ask yourself, is it more than the information that you're receiving on what's going on? It should be two-part. It should be you're getting informed, but it should be that the team is also getting assistance from you. And the other thing to realize is when your actions are visible, you're going to maybe have the feeling that that's reassuring to others, particularly maybe your boss is going to be assured that things are in hand because you're involved. And the problem with that is that the people that are on your team, they're not going to see it that way. They're going to be purely concerned with, are you helping or not? So think about control in these ways. Control can protect the schedule or the progress. Controlling things can clarify the situation for the people that are involved. But control can also suffocate the team that's doing the work. And you have to know the difference between those three. So what do we do when people come in and try to control us? Psychologists call this reactance. And essentially what reactance is anytime our options, we perceive our options to be limited in the future, we're going to have a negative reaction to that. You probably use the term pushback in your workplace. Well, why am I getting pushback on this? Because think about it. You're probably, whatever the case may be, whatever the situation is, you're probably limiting people's choices that they can make. And we all do this. You do this. So like, you got to think about your leadership style with your team. Is it the same leadership style that you want from your boss? And a lot of times, if you don't sit and think about that, it's not. You feel like you need to control your people, but you don't need that kind of control for coming to you from your boss. You want autonomy, and the lesson here is so do your people. And when people have a certain level of autonomy or freedom to act, then the motivation increases. And motivation is tied to what I need to do to achieve a goal. And it's not simply a goal that's handed to you, but it's a goal that I feel is important and worthy of my effort, which is why you need to develop people's goals jointly. And it should be mainly their ideas that go into the goals, because that is really going to be the foundation of the motivation to achieve them, not simply you telling them what needs to be done. You don't like to operate that way. But with resistance, it's not always going to be like a loud, blatant, I'm not doing that. It's going to be more of a slowing of the execution, slowing of new ideas coming your way. And a big one is people stop solving problems at their level, which is what you need to maintain tempo. And like I like to say, the best case scenario is that you get exactly what you're asking for, which sounds okay, but you really, to be a high performance organization, you need more than you're asking for. You need people to go show initiative and go beyond that. So what's the lesson here? The more control that you try to impose, naturally, people are going to resist that because it's probably taken away their freedom to act in some way. It might be necessary, but it's going to be a natural reaction that you have to be aware of. And then the natural result of that is that people have less initiative, people take less ownership, and then they're not really developing their judgment because you're taking away those valuable micro learning experiences that they can have. It's always better to step back, take a look at yourself and what you're trying to achieve, and then really provide the context of what needs to be done and leave a lot of the how things are done to the people doing the work. And we're not here just to make people feel good about what we're doing. I mean, we have to get a job done. So practically speaking, the more decisions that you require to be brought to you for your personal address, it's going to slow the whole thing down because you're going to eventually become the bottleneck. But maybe you think that's the only thing I can do. I just have to make these decisions because I'm the only one, maybe with the big picture of what needs to be achieved. And there probably is some truth to that. As a leader, you're going to be aware of other things going on in the business that people doing the work may not be considering. But the problem with that approach or that mindset is that people will eventually stop solving problems at their level. And why is that important? People are always dealing with uncertainty, and you cannot practically be involved in every situation that requires judgment. So people have to be exposed to these uncertain environments and these uncertain situations and be enabled to work through them on their own, not only just to keep the tempo or the pace or the speed of the organization where it needs to be, but for their own development of their abilities, judgment in particular. One way to think of your need or desire for control is to realize it's not possible for you to see everything. And I would take that one step further and say, not only can you not see everything yourself, but the people that are closer to the action actually see the details better than you. So you have to get some experience under your belt. You have to see it work. You have to get some confidence and see that that's really the only way for smooth execution, because it is pretty easy to think that you know better. It's just knowing what situations you do know better and which you don't. So I've mentioned the word context a couple of times here. Context over control. So context is going to be where you're going to build the overall picture for the team. You're going to describe the environment, the factors that are coming in, the important things for the business or your organization. From that, they're going to be able to make the detailed, time-sensitive decisions on their own. And this is where it's a military term, commander's intent, or your intent comes in, which is different from what I want you to do every step of the way and how to do it. You're definitely not that. Intent is really the meaning behind what we're doing in the first place, because the mission or the task at hand can be overcome by events. Okay. You might have prices go up to an unacceptable level, or you might have a problem with freight carriers. Those things are always going to happen. Those can change the details of the execution. But what's the intent of the whole overall project or the overall undertaking? The intent is that the customer can do something, or that the business sees some sort of result. And within that, the details of what needs to be done when are going to move around a little bit. And you need people with good judgment to be able to make the decisions on what those are and when that is. You also need to know the touch points or where you need to know the status of what's going on. But just trying to control all of those actions is not the same thing. You got to develop a sense for the right ways to supervise, the right times to be involved, not just over-involve yourself in things. You want to clarify the mission. You want to clarify the purpose or the why the mission is important. And then you want to clarify overall the situation to enhance people's ability to judge situations on their own. And this might feel like giving up control. More is going to get done. You're actually going to have more control because the people can react to the situations local or closer to them on the ground, where you will not be able to do that. It's something good always to remind ourselves. You think back to the Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus. One of the major themes that you'll find when you read these guys is that you got to focus on determining what you cannot control. And while this might seem obvious, remember, we got to connect everything back to the fact that we are responsible for an outcome or achieving a goal. And it is possible to do that without being in control of all the actions needed to get there. So what are some of the things that are under your control, or what are some of the things that you can influence in a situation like this? You can influence your preparation and the preparation of the team, training, mindset, set a standard. And this is the type of quality we're looking for in the work, for example. And then what and when you communicate is in your control as well, because plenty of things are not in your control. The timing of events, the role of luck. Luck just happens. You don't have control over that. Sometimes you catch a break. The dynamics of the environment align in your favor. Sometimes they don't. External conditions are real, and they're going to impact what you're trying to do. So you want to be aware that how much you actually are controlling might be a little bit of an illusion to you. It might not be reality. And once you start to realize this, it's going to have one of two effects. You're either going to accept it and probably calm down your overall approach, but probably the first reaction will be an overreaction or a tightening of control. So you're probably going to go through a cycle where you see that tightening of control is not the answer. Okay. What are our three principles here for execution? The first one is control is usually about you and not the team. A lot of times we'll think, well, the team can't do that, so I have to get involved. It's usually not the case. Number two, trust and context. People need to know the big picture so that they can operate within it well. And then three is you're always going to have some level of uncertainty. So don't pursue perfect understanding of what's going on around you or what could happen in the future. And then we got our 5 actions here that you can start to work on immediately. Number 1, look at the controls you have in place. These are the meetings, these are the check-ins, these are the one-on-ones, these are the reports that you require people to send in. Which ones are directly related to achieving a better outcome rather than just providing information? You want to keep the ones that impact outcomes and consider getting rid of almost everything else. Number 2 is spend time on intent. So a lot of times we jump right into the action that is needed, but you want to get sorted out in your mind really the purpose of what the team is doing and then communicate that relentlessly. 3 is be clear on who can make what decisions. A lot of times it's called a delegation of authority. So you don't want people worrying about aspects of your job. When it gets to this level, let me know, I'll get involved. And that is going to help you to not be involved prior to that. But who can make what decision and when? 4 is reward initiative. When people execute within the purpose or the intent, in other words, when they do things that you didn't specifically ask for them to do, but they have a big benefit because they fit within the purpose, you have to reward that publicly every time it happens so you can get more of it. And number 5, always a good reminder in ambiguous, uncertain situations, or maybe chaotic situations too. You got to set the example that you want your team to follow in the calmness under pressure, because people do mirror your emotions. Notice that when you get excited about something, like in a negative way, you're going to see the people around you doing the same thing. Control a lot of time is about us. We think it's about what other people need, but it's really at the heart about us and our anxiety, and really building up the experience to see that when you do things the right way, when you enable people and give them context instead of control, things work out better. Follow along, subscribe for the next one. Thanks.